call Meryl Streep one of the greats.
What is it that you really like? And you're so good at it. Look at you. Now, how good you are.
Des mots d'amour, des mots de tous les jours, et ça me fait quelque chose.
Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Renee-Elyse, and I am an actor, musician, artist, whatever you want to call it. And on this channel, I am reviewing actors and films and things within the film world. And this is my one of the greats videos where I discuss an actor that, at least in America, have been very revered and renowned for their acting and are typically considered to be one of the greats with acting. This is a term I'm going to be repeating a lot, so prepare yourself and bear with me. Today we are talking about Meryl Streep. Also, if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes. That's where I'm looking down, so sorry. Meryl Streep was born on June 22nd, 1949 in Summit, New Jersey. At age 12, she began opera lessons, but left after 4 years because she didn't feel that she could really understand or feel what she was singing. Though that short time of coaching, I think, really shows in her musical abilities today. Diving into the arts from an early age, she got her A.B. in drama at Vassar College before earning her MFA at Yale School of Drama. Not long after, she made a professional theater debut in Tron of the Wells at Lincoln Center, which eventually led to the impressive and extensive acting career that we know her for today. Meryl Streep is described as the best actress of her generation. So, what makes her the best? What qualities does she possess as an actress that make it seemingly effortless for her to slip into any world, any character, and any story? In short, what makes her one of the greats? To really understand her as a performer, I watched 3 of what are considered her most iconic performances. Sophie Zawistowska from Sophie's Choice, Julia Child from Julie and Julia, and Joanna Kramer from Kramer vs. Kramer. And as I'm saying this, I understand that I'm realizing that she plays a character that all of these movies are named after. She's just iconic like that. Anyways, let's get right into it. First off, we have Sophie's Choice. I hope everyone appreciates. I felt like Sophie's. I keep wanting to say Zofia, because apparently that's like actually her name, but she goes by Sophie in America. But I hope everyone appreciates the vibe I'm going for her. I felt like Sophie's aura, at least post-war, was very like baby pinky pearly vibes, so that's what we're going for today. The plot of Sophie's Choice goes as follows. Stingo, a young writer, moves to Brooklyn in 1947 to begin work on his first novel. As he becomes friendly with Sophie and her lover Nathan, he learns that Sophie's a Holocaust survivor. Flashbacks reveal her harrowing story from pre-war prosperity to Auschwitz. In the present, Sophie and Nathan's relationship increasingly unravels as Stingo grows closer to Sophie, and Nathan's fragile mental state becomes ever more apparent. Meryl Streep as Sophie Zawistowska is honestly just a true blessing to cinema. I mean, honestly, she just blesses every movie that she's in. Having only ever seen her later work, I was excited to see how her performance compares in her younger years. And it was such a treat to see her owning so much whimsy and sexuality, her vulnerability, and her uncanny talent to master any dialect.
Of course. And in front of him and all his colleagues, he said,
seems to be the strength in which her acting was built upon from the start. Sophie is a Polish Holocaust survivor, which meant that Meryl Streep was tasked with perfecting the Polish accent. And according to IMDb, not only did she learn the Polish accent, but she also learned how to speak German and Polish to really nail the proper dialect of a Polish refugee. I've done extensive research on how accurate of a portrayal her accent is, and I'm pleased to report it has been deemed flawless, even by Polish reviewers. In an article for Poland Daily, the author writes, "What makes Meryl Streep's performance as Sophie even more extraordinary is her ability to speak Polish convincingly. Streep's dedication to her craft and her commitment to authenticity shine through in her portrayal of Sophie. Despite not having any Polish ancestry, she meticulously learned the language for the role, immersing herself in Polish culture and dialect. Streep's linguistic prowess allowed her to embody the character of Sophie authentically, capturing the essence of a Polish immigrant grappling with her traumatic experiences. Her innate talent for linguistics seems to allow her a unique perspective into the lives she is hired to portray. She really understands how to use her voice and its many fluctuations. Pop Matters wrote on the topic, her voice specifically, though, is tender, lifting, mellifluous. Through the distinct Polish intonations hide vulnerability, which Streep expertly reveals bit by bit and piece by piece, carefully unraveling her character. It's almost with surgical precision that Streep even seems to elevate such a character." Meryl Streep studied Polish for 3 hours a day for 2 months, which I don't know about you. It's very rare that I can commit to something so fully, unless it's for a role, and even then, with my ADHD, that's kind of a toss-up, so good for her. There is so much I could say about Meryl Streep in Sophie's Choice. This video could easily be hours long, but I will try to just narrow it down to what I think highlights her as an actress. In a very interesting press interview for the film, which I suggest every Meryl Streep fan watch, I shall link it down below, we get to hear in Meryl's own words what being immersed in the story was like for her. One of the most notable being when she was asked how she prepared for the more quote-unquote highly charged scenes. It's like the more emotional, darker, just emotionally draining, sad scenes that if you've seen Sophie's Choice, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Those scenes, the ones that are so highly charged in their atmosphere and the situation, the plot that takes you there, sometimes are not the most difficult ones to act because they're so unbearable. They're unbearable to watch. Some of the girls that were Yugoslav girls that were playing partisans and standing next to me were very carried away with the scene themselves, and they weren't actors or anything because it was a frightening situation. And sometimes movies do that for you. You don't have to imagine it so thoroughly out of whole cloth, you know. Sometimes because they deal in reality and real things, you know, we were there on a night and it was scary.
In the same interview, when asked if she could cry on cue, she responded,
"Oh, I can't cry unless I'm moved for some reason, so sometimes it just doesn't happen. And then usually, though, I know that there's something wrong with the scene. Because if it isn't moving in some way, then it's not right."
I can't tell you how important it is for an actor, all actors, to debunk and continue to debunk the myth of crying on cue. In my opinion, it's just a rite of passage for the average actor. I will hand it to certain actors. Some have the crazy ability to just force out tears when the situation calls for it.
Close. Oh my God. Oh my God.
But it's rare and it's really not the same as crying. Crying, the way I see it, is a byproduct of intense emotion, you know, positive or negative. You have to be moved in life and you have to feel so deeply and have it be building up for your body to need to physically release it through tears. One of the marks of a true actor is not the ability to force out tears on command, though I'm sure it is a very convenient skill to have. It is the strength to get in touch with your emotions and to feel and allow yourself to be seen feeling, which is a lot harder than it sounds because we as people just spend all day masking and avoiding what we are truly feeling. And you'd be surprised how much, once you start trying to get in touch with your emotions and your core, you would be surprised at how little you actually knew about what you were feeling on a daily basis. It's creepy. Meryl Streep makes it very clear here that that is a serious detriment to any actor. And this movie being nearer towards the beginning of her career, it seemed like she was already mastering this already. It's showcased throughout the entire film, where she plays around with core and mask so expertly. You know, she knows when to let the mask fall and let us see the authenticity, see the core, and she knows when it would serve Sophie to keep it on, giving us the very layered and complex character that we awarded an Oscar to. Yes, if you did not know, this did garner Meryl Streep her very first Oscar. The last I will say on this film specifically, because I could go on and on, is in the same interview I've been discussing, she was asked what, in my opinion, is kind of just an odd question. The interviewer asked her, "What would you have done if you didn't get the part?" To which she replied,
I would have felt bad, but I mean, I wouldn't kill myself.
I just think it's an odd question because that is just how it is as an actor. You never know if you're gonna get the part or not, so it's like, that's just part of the job. So it's just like a weird question in my head, but whatever. I thought her answer was brilliant. Julie and Julia follows Julie Powell as she vows to prepare all 524 recipes in Julia Child's landmark cookbook, Mastering the Art of French Cooking. Intertwined with Julie's story is the true tale of how Julia Child herself conquered French cuisine with passion, fearlessness, and plenty of butter. This was a total switch from Sophie's Choice, which is precisely why I chose it. I know it's one of her lesser-known films, and I said I was going to do her most iconic performances, but with the intensity of Sophie's Choice and Kramer versus Kramer, I really wanted to throw something a bit more lighthearted in the mix. And I also know that one would normally go for like Mamma Mia or The Devil Wears Prada, but I'm only doing movies I haven't seen before, and I have seen both of those many times. So, and this movie was so much fun to watch. I could really see this becoming quite the comfort movie. And the lightheartedness does not remotely diminish Meryl Streep's talent or hide it at all. If anything, I think it highlights it. Her ability to be put into such a joyful story and still manage to make me cry is criminal. Jail. Anyway, and of course, she gets to show off her brilliant comedic timing and her improvisational skills. Her Julia Child comes off almost childlike, but not in like a condescending or ignorant manner, just in her whimsy and excitement towards life, as if she's seeing everything for the first time. Where in Sophie's Choice, her whimsy was more of a mask to hide her pain. Julia Child's whimsy is much more just her authentic self. She wears her heart on her sleeve, and she is she's just unbound, completely out in the open. Meryl Streep just balances this so well with her strength and ability to own every room Julia steps in. There is no end to the praise that Meryl Streep received from castmates and crew on this set. From her director.
Anybody who gets to direct Meryl Streep knows that it's about as good as it gets because she's so prepared. She knew so completely what she wanted to do as Julia. When you're directing her, you can kind of go like this a little bit, but basically it's there. It's all there.
From her co-star, Stanley Tucci.
Working with Meryl is, one of the greatest experiences ever because she's really funny and she's really talented. And her concentration is extraordinary. I mean, you never know what she's going to do on every take. And that's the thing that makes it so exciting.
Even from Julia Child's niece.
Her characterization of Julia was unbelievably accurate. And she said the two of the things that she focused on were the voice and the gestures of a tall person.
I know very little about Julia Child and what she was like in real life, so I couldn't really judge from that perspective. But just as an audience member, I really felt Meryl Streep's passion and authenticity. We need more words that mean those things. I just keep saying the same words over and over again. Whatever. She pulls you right in, making you want desperately to see everything she's seeing, do everything she's doing, smell everything she's smelling, and of course taste everything she's tasting, obviously. In a very Julia Child spirit, Meryl Streep made sure everyone knew that she mastered the art of flipping the omelet before every other guy in that in the cooking class scenes. She read her books and she watched her shows throughout the filming, to which Meryl Streep thinks is evident in the movie, as she feels she dropped deeper into the character further along in the process, which could very well be true. However, watching it, I really did feel like she just understood her from the get-go. But obviously, when you're analyzing your own performance, you know what you were thinking at the time, you know what you were feeling and doing at the time, so like you can't be like, well, it may look the same to you, but I know I felt more dropped in that moment, which totally valid. In an interview, she said, you know, in a way, part of your work is done for you when a character comes so fully formed already in the audience's mind, and the actual outward things are not as hard to achieve. It's the inside of her and the light that seemed to come from her positivity and her fearlessness and willingness to jump into the things she didn't understand herself. Meryl Streep knew the responsibility she was taking on, playing a real person and an iconic figure at that. She didn't take this lightly.
Julia Child was a larger-than-life character. So while I felt a responsibility, certainly to her memory and the legacy of the great work that she did and to the essence of her character, but I'm not really doing Julia Child. I'm doing Julie Powell's idea of who she was.
I think this mindset lended such an advantage to Meryl Streep, understanding the many layers and complexities, repeating myself again, of playing not only a real person, but someone else's idea of a real person. In the words of the producer,
she has an uncanny ability to both suggest Julia Child and imbue the character with the spirit of Julia Child, and yet it's not any sort of impersonation of Julia Child. It is a beautiful, beautiful characterization.
I do also want to say that Amy Adams, who played Julie Powell, did amazing. Her character was very relatable, and her desire for self-discovery was a beautiful balance with Julia Child's sure of herself, larger-than-life personality. And this is more about Julie than Julia, or about Meryl Streep at all, but I do have to say it. What a beautiful mental feat to learn that your hero, who you've dedicated an entire year of your life to, doesn't like you or what you're doing in their name. Yet, still continue on with your project, still continue to credit them, and be able to nurture and separate the version of her in your head versus the her you'll never meet. Quick appreciation for the black sesame honey matcha that I made today. So fucking good. Last but not least, we have Kramer versus Kramer. We've made it. This movie follows Ted Kramer, an advertising executive. And the day he lands the biggest account of his career is the same day he learns that his wife, Joanna, played by Meryl Streep, is leaving him and their young son, Billy. We watch as Ted learns how to be a dad for basically the first time, lose his job, and ultimately fight Joanna for custody over Billy. Meryl Streep isn't in a large chunk in the middle of this film. She makes an impact. In true Meryl style, she makes us cry and she makes us see things differently. The movie opens with a close-up of her face in deep thought, sorrow, and regret flooding her eyes. She's leaving her son, and you can tell by the way she's saying goodnight and I love you. Like, you just know immediately that that's what's happening just by the tone of her voice and the look in her eyes. Being cast as Joanna, Meryl Streep was tasked with a very difficult job. make a woman who leaves her husband and child likable. And this movie being made in the late 70s did not make that job any easier.
Can you define misogyny for me?
Yeah, she succeeded. Are we surprised? It's no wonder though when you look at the way she approached, I can't stop moving. And you look at the way she approached Joanna Kramer. In a behind the scenes interview, she stated, "I wanted to portray someone whose mental instability and emotional frailty was so precarious that she would do this thing, that she would leave a kid, and I had to understand it myself in order to play it." Even though it isn't specifically stated in the film, if you kind of read between the lines and just watch the way Joanna moves through the world, and the tone in which she speaks, it's clear that she's struggling, you know? It's clear that she's definitely feeling some depression or something. Not trying to diagnose Joanna Kramer over here. She does have a therapist in the movie. Not to say that a woman needs to be mentally unstable to divorce her husband. The most stable women I know are divorced. But I think there is something to be said about the mental state any parent, regardless of gender, would need to be in to leave their child. And Meryl helped tell the story of a woman so oppressed in her marriage, who felt so low of herself, she genuinely felt it would harm her son for her to stick around.
I'm terrible with him. I have no patience. He's better off without me. I was incapable of functioning in that home, and I didn't know what the alternative was going to be. So I thought it was not best that I take him with me. However, I've since gotten some help, and I have worked very, very hard to become a whole human being. And I don't think I should be punished for that.
We are able to empathize with such an emotionally distraught woman, and while not agreeing with her decision, understanding the pain that led her there. But Streep absolutely does not leave it at that. I was so enthralled by the strength she brought to Joanna. It would have been so easy for her to just play her as emotional and lost and say, "Job well done." But we see her strength in the way she comes back, prepared to fight for her son. We see it how she begins therapy and, starts to work on herself and her mental health. And we see it in how she inevitably lets her son go, seeing how much he needs his father and the beautiful relationship that they were able to create in her absence. You can even argue we see it in the way she initially leaves and says goodbye to her son, knowing how fucking difficult that was for her. And of course that's just written into it, but Meryl Streep brings it with her posture, her physicality, and the way she eyes the lawyers and her ex all show the subtleties of her strength. Meryl Streep really did the work to understand Joanna's point of view. And all the evidence you need is in her monologue from the court scene, a monologue Meryl Streep actually wrote herself.
Because he's my child. And because I love him. I know I left my son. I know that that's a terrible thing to do. Believe me, I have to live with that every day of my life. But in order to leave him, I had to believe that it was the only thing I could do. Billy's only 7 years old. He needs me. I'm not saying he doesn't need his father, but I really believe he needs me more. I was his mommy for 5.5 years. And Ted took over that role for 18 months. But I don't know how anybody can possibly believe that I have less of a stake in mothering that little boy than Mr. Kramer does. I'm his mother. I'm his mother.
It's so simple, so truthful, and only an actor who truly delves into their character and does the work to understand them can word their lines so perfectly. Like, better than what the writer could have came up with. Yeah. Because this character was thought to be difficult to portray as likable, which don't even get me fucking started on female characters always having to be likable.
Can you define misogyny for me?
The writers and director, all men, were dumbfounded by Meryl's portrayal, saying things like,
It's effortless. And she can do anything. I mean, she can do anything.
And
I mean, she's got the best face of anybody on screen. There is an inherent intelligence and goodness that comes out of her, and I think the audience responds to that.
Her co-star, Dustin Hoffman, added, 99% of her work is not acting. She's spontaneous. And to which he admitted, actually put Meryl through a pretty tough time on set. In the midst of filming, he was dealing with his own divorce at the time and admitted to taking it out on Meryl sometimes because she was playing the character that his character was divorcing. And he even brought up his frustration about her during press interviews, his solo press interviews for the movie, which Meryl Streep had no idea until it was brought up to her by an interviewer during her solo press interviews. Yet she continued to act civilly and praise his performance. But she's not a pushover. I believe that she really channeled her strength and anger productively into Joanna, saying, I think if there's anything that runs through all my work, all my characters, it's that I've had a relationship with them where I feel I have to defend them. And defend her she did. Meryl Streep was asked the very dividing question, what is more important, the process of making the film or the end result? When I watched this interview, I paused at that question to see if I could come up with my own answer, so new and green in my own acting career. Shocker, I couldn't. Or I could, I just didn't trust that it was good enough. But Meryl said exactly what I was thinking. We're just so in tune like that.
Well, the end product is the most important thing, what the film is like, how it turns out, whether it's, supported its aims, whether it's successful artistically and in every way, whether people want to see it, whether it speaks to them. All those things are important. And yet, the process of making the film is what I go through, so it's important to me.
I know in a sense this is basically a non-answer, but it makes perfect sense to me. I have found that the more I continue to act, and the more I study acting, and the more I grow with my acting, the less I can honestly describe it. And that's how I feel watching Meryl Streep talk about acting. She makes it seem so situational and not like there's a universal way to go about it, or there's no straight answer for every scene and character and story. It's layered and complex in a million shades of gray, and she's confident in that way of going about it, which inspires me to just trust my gut like I should have when I first tried to answer that question, and just feel out each scene, each character, and each project for what they are. I learned that she doesn't necessarily have a specific preparation method for her characters. She plays it by ear and sees what they need from her and what she needs from them. Though there was a brief time in Meryl Streep's college years where she wasn't sure acting was a realistic idea for a career, and she considered pre-law, it is clear that this is what she was made to do. And it seems she agrees, stating, I went to drama school because I didn't think I was suited to do anything else, not smart enough to do anything else. And I'm much more comfortable enclosed in a world of fiction. She says she wanted to do something important that could impact the world, and she wasn't sure if acting could do that, but that she has since changed her mind and believes acting is a very valuable thing. Her raw emotional capacity and innate strength and compassion allows her to tell stories that make wonderful impacts. That's what art is. A universal language that connects us all, and where we can discuss the themes of life that maybe on a daily basis we don't feel comfortable discussing. She enlightened a new generation on the horrors and lasting trauma of the Holocaust in Sophie's Choice. She gives us a glimpse into the life of a feminist icon figure in Julia, and she gives a voice to struggling mothers and wives in Kramer versus Kramer. So, is Meryl Streep one of the greats? Fuck yeah. Yeah, I don't even need to answer that question. We knew. But it was so much fun to figure out why, or at least try to figure out why. I believe the pillars of her acting are vulnerability, strength, and her linguistic prowess. Meryl Streep is a naturally gifted, hardworking, and complex actress. In my last video, I called Tom Hanks very simple in his acting and his approach to acting, and it's why he is so great. So you might be wondering, okay, well now you're saying Meryl Streep is so great because she's complex. Yeah, exactly. Every actor is different, and every actor needs to approach it in a different way because they feel differently and they move through the world differently. So there's no universal, just like Meryl Streep seems to say, there's no universally correct method to go about acting. It is absolutely about your own self, your core, the way your brain works, the way your brain is wired, very important. The way you feel and the way you see things and the way you move will absolutely dictate the most effective ways for you to drop into a story. So yes, she's a complex actress. She fills her characters with layers where you feel like no matter how much you dig, you have only scratched the surface of what she has cooked up for her characters. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this. I had so much fun watching the movies and doing the research for it. Meryl Streep is honestly just, I mean, it's no wonder she's described as the best actress of her generation. I think that she would be very difficult shoes to fill. There's only one her, for sure. Please come back next time. We're gonna be talking about, we're gonna be talking about Denzel Washington. I'm very excited. All right, thank you.